He contacted me. They're looking for between 500 and 1,000 acres. He is really looking at creating more of an assembly or light manufacturing, but building out more of a kind of a destination tourism. So there'll be components of it that are coming out looking at the vehicles, but also a lot of the folks that are really looking at these types of vehicles want an experience. And so really he has talked about how the impact to the surrounding communities will be minimal. He likes the rural atmosphere and feel, so they're not looking at bringing any kind of industrial manufacturing, but more of an assembly feel. And then really surrounding it with maybe some place to eat, some experiences. I'm not sure if they're looking at a motor park where you could go and drive cars and things like that. But really that's kind of what they're looking at. And as we've talked about economic development in Morgan, like how can we have destinations where people come in, use facilities, use services, expend money, and then leave? And how can we have that experience be minimal impact in the community? And this may, with maybe some further investigation, be one of those opportunities. The other thing that does is it brings a certain customer into Morgan County that is probably a little more higher end customer looking to spend $80,000 to $100,000 for a vehicle and or above, and then really being experienced in the Morgan field, right? And so now maybe they'll come and experience fishing or hunting or any of the other things we're really looking to build out here in Morgan County. So before I recontact them and start having some real conversations and look for some leads and some opportunities, I'm wondering if the commission would like to invite them to come and really lay out with a little more precision on what they're looking at and what they're trying to build out here in Morgan County, like we were trying to do this evening until unfortunately we were good luck. So open for discussion and thoughts. I don't have that particularly. I know that the owner has driven around Morgan looking at some different property. I don't know if he's looking at available property. He says he's looked at between 500 and 1,000 acres, but I don't know where specifically. Again, that would probably be something if we got into a deeper discussion from the commission on preferential areas that you would say this would probably be more conducive to what we're looking at, and whether that's a reflection of your constituents or a reflection of our economic development plan, that would probably help them kind of drive where their plans would be.
In that email that we received, it was talking about they wanted a place near Mountain Green. Where would they put it in Mountain Green?
Yeah, so I think that was reference to when they were looking about 10 or 15 years ago.
Okay.
I think they were here early 2000 when they were initially expanding their plant or their assembly and manufacturing building. And so I think they had looked in the Mountain Green Peterson area because, again, the growth hadn't started or was not really looking from an economic development point as a growth area. I don't think they're necessarily looking there now because, again, most of that property has been sold or is presently under some type of an agreement for future development. So it'll probably be somewhere else in the county.
Do you know, do they sell these direct from their factory, or how do they do that?
I believe they do. I think it's kind of the experience. You make your order, it gets manufactured, assembled there, and then you probably either come and pick it up or you purchase it there and then it's shipped out. So if your question is specific to like a sales tax or where this
Yeah, I was just wondering about point of sale.
I think that would be a good conversation to have to them. But from my understanding, they're looking at moving their entire business and operation to Morgan County.
Do you know, are they looking for like tax increment financing to help do this?
Have not had any of that conversation. Usually that's a conversation that be one of the first out of the gate when a company when a company contacts me, they'll be looking for some type of what are the financial tools, what's the environment. They did not ask me any of those questions. Their first question was really, what do you think the commission or the community will feel about a project like this?
I think it's an interesting project. I'd like to have them come in and explain in more detail what they do. It'd be interesting to see photographs of and maybe some aerials of what their existing facility looks like, so we understand exactly what it is they're
I can't remember the name of the business, Commissioner Fackrell, but they referenced not a brewery, but another company that produces alcohol, in the sense that the way that they created this, the business was, not only did they create something, but they created an experience where people came to be part of the experience. That's kind of what the feel that I'm getting from them, is that there's a motorsports feel and there's a motorsports customer, and what they're trying to create is that experience where you come not only to buy the vehicle but to be part of that experience.
Is that that facility in Summit County?
I believe so. That sounds familiar. Yeah, I was searching for.
No, it's like
No,
High Mountain Ranch or something like
I saw him post some stuff, so he was around.
That rings a bell. So, we looked for the email, but apparently my email's in Google, so it's lost. Google drives me crazy. So, but yeah, so I'll reach back out to them and get with Julie and schedule a work session for about a half an hour for them to kind of come and show you what their thoughts are, and maybe have a good conversation. The second area that I maybe discuss really quickly was we applied through the state for a grant in the TIF Active Supplemental Grant, and we applied for $1.5 million from the Sinclair Station for a 2-lane bicycle access and travel lane to Peterson exit interchange to the dirt path. And we've moved to the second stage. Again, what we called it was the Morgan County Active Transportation Hub. The concept was, we believe that there'll be a hub there as soon as the developer is able to build out the Mountain Green Town Center. And that hub will feed up into the Ogden Valley, up towards Morgan City, and down the canyon and over into Peterson. So it'll be kind of the hub of active transportation in Morgan. We believe there'll probably be another hub, to be honest with you, probably in the Morgan City area. But the reality of it is, if we're going to have a regional approach to active transportation, the Mountain Green hub will probably be the largest hub for that active transportation because it feeds all 3 counties. And so I think that was very interesting to them. We'd also had a conversation in an active transportation meeting about working with the state to adopt the other active transportation projects, which would have been down the canyon, Weaver Canyon, and then also up and over Trappers. Is that correct, Commissioner Facker? And so we need to work with them to get those 2 projects on, at least on their list. And then we looked at the portion that the county's looking at working with the state on finding funding, and that basically is a 3 or 4 phase project that will go from the Sinclair Station amount to Peterson, from Peterson to Morgan and City, and then from Morgan City up into the Hennifer area, if I remember correctly.
The Hennifer area is later. That's probably 4. There was another one that was going from Morgan City up over to Salt Lake County. So.
Yeah, so again, I think that they were super interested in a couple different layers. I think probably the first layer is that it is a regional project, and that is also a project that is phased. And I think they like the phased concepts, that you're really looking at building it out in a manner that's more responsive to the actual use of it. So as we get a lot of use into the first phase, then we build into the second phase, then we build into the third phase. So anyway, I'll be moving forward on that. It's moved into the prioritization phase, and so I'll start answering the questions, and I'll probably have some questions for both Commissioner Fackrell on that. And then any questions on that? Just as a heads up, one of the areas that there is a match, but talking to Commissioner Fackrell, we'll probably use some work that can be done by Public Works, and then we'll use some other funding sources.
It'll be some other funding sources.
Yeah. So moving that forward, fingers crossed, we'll get prioritized. And again, we're a smaller community, and so sometimes that's a positive, sometimes a negative. This may be a positive because we have not received funds for projects like this before, where other larger counties have. So we'll move forward on that. On the last area, I think I want to touch base on, and again, I apologize that I couldn't get the other developer here, is we're working, and we've worked for the last 2 years with a lobbyist, Dave Stewart. I reached out to him to see if he could come and do a presentation, kind of what our priorities are. I think that we probably, from a county commission perspective, with the EAS really being scheduled for completion in April 2024, that puts us after legislature is over. Sometimes it's hard to get prescribed programming dollars before the EAS is done. So the reality of it is we'll probably have a good push from our lobbyists to get the project higher up the list, but funding dollars may not come till next year. And if that's the case, my suggestion is maybe we have some conversations about what else we're looking for at the legislature level, and have him work on a couple more projects just besides this one, so that you feel like at the end of the day we've moved the interchange forward, but also we've maybe made some headway on a couple other projects, and whether it's a water issue or whether it's active transportation or whatever. Maybe there's a specific small or rural community issue we want to make sure that he's keeping an eye on. I think we should take some time and prioritize, maybe with the chamber and with Nuke, on what those things would be, and we have some very specific things that we're asking our lobbyists to work on besides the interchange. So, specific to economic development, those are some of the things I'll report on, and I appreciate your time.
I did find that email if you wanted it.
Would you mind sending it, forwarding to
Send
the
it back to
commissioners,
you.
and then would you send it back to me?
I've got it.
You
October
got it?
5th.
Okay.
It was High West Eastern.
Yeah, I West.
Okay, thank you.
Brian Gilbert.
Okay. Julie, do we want to, well, let's have some discussion. Any discussion you want to have regarding the tentative budget? Questions or comments regarding that for now?
Yeah, I
And then
think we
have
ought
the
to.
sheriff come in, visit with us. And then, I did ask Leslie to come in too about 4:30 to visit on the budget if there's any questions.
That fund that you were talking about, it's the Park and Recreation Fund that had a balance at the end of the year of balance at the end of the year of $310,000. And so that's where I'm saying, instead of taking it from the general fund, why not take it from the restricted fund to take care of the shortages in that recreation budget? And then we can keep a better control over what's going on this next year, maybe.
Well, I don't see it as overages though.
What is it?
It's the wage and salaries that we've talked about. Then the suggestion that Commissioner Anderson made was that the wages should be coming out of the general fund rather than out of the recreation.
That is correct, but what we're asking for tonight in the budget was to take care of a shortfall for last year of $66,000.
Oh, you're talking 2023. I thought
Yeah,
you
I'm
were
talking 2023.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's for the 2024 budget year, because we asked in our budget, well, it's on our sheet. I can't control this, so. Let me get it here. No, let me get it for you.
You're talking 2024 budget now?
Yes, our 2024 budget. That's the one I'm talking about.
talking recreation from the general fund.
Okay, county recreation,
What page are you on?
I'm on page 15. It has a $66,769 expense there for county recreation, and I don't know what it's for or from.
Oh,
Okay.
that should be permanent employees.
Then we got it under the wrong category. From last year. Or no, this year.
Which, yeah, but it's salary and wages that we were gonna cover from the general fund. No, we had talked about having her wages come from general
From
fund.
general fund. That's
Just
correct.
well, not just hers, but wages in general, and we figured that 66,000 was the approximate of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now I see what you're talking about. I was confused by that.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. So yeah, let's move that up to wages. I think that's fine.
And then we had talked.
And then on the jail, I think we ought to budget maybe 80,000 just to be safe.
Yeah.
Or do you think we can budget 80? If we need to adjust it, we can adjust it later. Okay, so let's put 80 in there for now, and then hopefully we have it before we finalize, because we won't vote to finalize the budget until first meeting in December, right?
Right.
Okay, so we could tweak it before then if we need to.
And then also, I don't know if Leslie got this or not, the 1,500 that for the weed that they always come to us for the Dyer's Road. Did you put that into this or not?
I haven't modified the budget for that.
Okay, then I'm gonna discuss it with them. Okay, the 1,500 that they always come to us and ask us for the Dyer's Road project, why not just put it into the weed department?
Yep, I agree. Do it.
Okay, so there's another one for you. The weed department?
I would put it in weeds since we have a fund for it, and then we know exactly what it's for.
You said 1,500, right?
1,500 is what they've asked for us in the past.
The other thing that we've talked about, but we haven't made much progress on it, and I wonder if we ought to think about it since we are in the black here, we're not talking about, if we were in the red, I wouldn't bring this up.
Right.
But one of the things we've talked about is some type of compensation for our fair board chair and some of those folks who were heavily involved. I don't know what that would look like, but that's something we could put in under the general fund fair portion.
It's now all under one category. Fair is under one category.
Yeah, but it's just like recreation, it's its own fund now. So if we wanted to do that and have it come from county funds, it would have to be in the general fund. Correct me if I'm wrong. It would have to be in the general fund. Because what we have right now is just a balancing fund under fair, which is just their expenditure, their revenues are covering their expenditures. We don't have anything going from general fund to fair currently. So we would have to put that
So
under the fair section.
we took out that amount that we used to do, was a flat amount from general fund, and put it into the fair. Now we no longer have that? Is that what you're saying?
We took revenues and expenditures out of the general fund when they created that new fund for fair.
All right.
And so now there's nothing from the general fund for fair. My suggestion is perhaps we put some money in there that we could use for that compensation.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
And I'm thinking maybe somewhere around $10,000 or $15,000, and we can decide how that will be divided out. Maybe put 15, just so we can figure out from there.
Okay, we also have, 26-4, 4510, 200, 250.
26, you say?
26-410, it's on page 23. Unless So I wasn't sure where it came from and what it's for.
You said page 40 or
2023.
Oh, yeah.
So why is mineral lease revenue going into Parks and Recreation? 'Cause I don't know if that's in state rec code or anything.
That's not in part, it's intergovernmental revenue.
Or are you on the same page as me?
Yeah.
Well, you got 26, which is an intergovernmental. Yeah, so basically, we're getting a revenue in 263355, and then in 26-4510-250, we're having an expense.
Under equipment, supplies, and maintenance for parks and
Yeah,
recreation.
so what is that for if, why do we need to do that? I
Looks
mean,
like
it's a
we're just
wash.
balancing that fund, but I don't know, have we ever spent out of that fund? What have we done in the past? Have we spent anything in the past, do you know?
Would that be that question I asked you earlier today on the Parks, Recreation, and whatever fund it was? It was $712,000. Okay, because we've got right now 94 as a balance in park. We have 9449, and in recreation it's $300,975. These are the restricted funds. That's what we had at the end of 2022. And if those are continuing sales tax that we receive from recreation or park, then that has increased substantially since then. Okay. Let's see if there were some notes. Yeah, the Morgan County Fair Fund. It's gonna grow now. By the way, I'm proud of the fair. They've done a good job. And then there were some differences here in the budget when I was going through it with Leslie on some duplications. She's working on that. Since the sheriff's in here after that, I can ask a question publicly.
You have some questions?
That's because we didn't give you the, well, I'll let you explain if you want. But basically what it was is we had to go in and we figured out the total amount of wages, and when you're looking at that adjustment line, we adjusted everybody, not just yours, according to the 8% that you,
To the current wages.
to the current
So
wages.
Did he have more in there before, is that what it was?
Well, he had asked for additional money, just like everybody else, they had asked for additional money for their employees, and we have an adjustment line there after we got all this information corrected based upon the wage they were wanting, and we did not give it to them at this point. I cannot find.
But I wouldn't think that'd be 12,000. So I show total current wage, let me see. According to the spreadsheet that we were given, your total current wages for your current employees is $338,561. And then with the increase, it's $358,675. No, that includes the new person. So maybe we need to look at those, sit down with Julie and go through and make sure we've got everybody's correct, the current wages correct.
Yeah, there's a second line there.
So, Josh, do you want to come over here and look at this actually, if you want, with me real quick? And I'll just show you where the number came from, and then you can decide if you think that looks correct or not. So this is what we have as your current wages. Dave, Raquel, Jeremy, and then a new person.
That looks right.
So,
So you have a new person, okay.
and that does include the new person. And then we did an increase, which would put you
So the 8% increase you're also
All
giving to the
here.
new person?
No,
Yeah,
that
I would
shouldn't
say
be.
no, they're the same. See,
Oh,
they're
okay.
still the
Okay.
same, 55. But that puts the
Okay.
new total at this 358.
Okay. I must have been looking at both already. That looks
But
right.
I mean, it's off of actuals, so hopefully that's correct.
Yeah, that looks correct.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I think we're good there.
All
Okay.
right,
Did you have something
I
else?
did, if we have time.
Yeah.
Okay. Corey, you can help me on this, Corey and Jim. Under fleet management, you have a sheriff budget for $150,000 for fleet, and then you have a sheriff vehicle lease for $122,000. That's $272,000. Can you kind of explain that whole thing to me, how it works? Because it seems to me like that number's going up every year, and when you guys have told us in the past that you're gonna take a vehicle, you buy it for this much and you sell it for this much, that means that money should be coming back into the fleet budget to where you're not having to expend as much money every single year.
Yeah, they did reduce it this year.
But I'm
It
still
hasn't
trying to get an
increased.
understanding as to how this is working, because you have two line items there, a sheriff and then a sheriff vehicle lease. So I need to know what that is.
So the lease covers all the lease payments for all the vehicles we buy.
Okay,
Every 3 years, we're rotating vehicles, and we've got leases on those, and most of those, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking like, what is it, about 20,000 a year per vehicle on those leases, 20, 25? That's what it has been, it changes. But that line item is covering just the lease payments for all of them. The other line item covers everything else, fuel, maintenance,
the 50,
equipment,
150,000?
it's installation of equipment, have we purchased anything like vehicles out of that other one? In the past, we've done a couple of outright purchases. When we got towards the end of the year, there was a little bit of money left, and we've just gone and outright purchased some.
Because
And I don't know what the balance is this year, but if there is, we ought to consider doing the same again.
Because fuel's on another line. You got fuel and stuff on another area unless,
No, not for sheriff.
not for sheriff, okay, not sheriff, the others we do. But, so this 150,000 is a budget, and then the 122 I can see for the lease now, but what's the 150 for? Can't be all for fuel.
Repairs.
No, let's see. Expenditures, those, what it costs to outfit those vehicles, that's coming out of that line.
10 grand, 15 grand.
And so those, every time we do one of those retrofits, with the sheriff stuff that's about $5,000 each, right?
No, 10 to 15.
$10,000 to $15,000, and we're switching around the vehicles every year, every 3 years. It's a huge expense. Why don't we keep them a little longer, if that's the case?
We've done that in the past. They used to keep them for 5, 8 years, and they kept having breakdowns and problems. So that's why they went to this 3-year rotation. The idea was you get rid of it before the vehicle has major issues. It is more costly on the outfitting costs, because you're gonna, but right now, I mean, we don't typically have extra vehicles either, so if you have a car down, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's not like we can,
I'm just wondering if there's a way to,
And that's something, and we've talked about
Cost.
that, like, in a couple of situations, saying, well, maybe we'll keep it for 4 instead of 3.
are you?
Quite the abuse. Usually after 3 years, you're what, to like 70, 80,000 miles?
Okay.
He's chasing down a lot of speeders, that's why. This is a big county, and you burn a lot of fuel and put a lot of miles on, just back and forth across the county. But to me, I like our officers out patrolling. I like to see them in
I
the
do
far
too.
reaches of the county. I think it's good. So,
I agree with you. I mean, I just wanted an explanation of those items, because every year I see this sheriff and then sheriff vehicle lease. And then if the 15,000 per vehicle is every 3 years, then why so much?
No, it's 15, that's for the that part. Oh, sorry, I was thinking the lease. No, you're talking
The retrofit.
the retrofits, yeah, that's every 3 years per vehicle, but we're rotating through vehicles.
How many
Every year,
vehicles-
we're buying new ones because they're on a 3-year rotation. We don't rotate all of them every 3 years.
Do we do 10 of them a year?
Like 3 this year, and 3 next year, and 3.
Okay, so you do them every 5 years, or 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 vehicles every year are being.
I'm just, that's
And
10
then fuel,
vehicles.
and then tires, and then when they wreck. You can go look at the historical expenditures, though, that's what I would
Okay.
look at.
I'm gonna do.
And if there's extra revenue in there, though, which there has been in the past, there's been extra money in that account towards the end of the year. And in the past, we've ended up just buying a vehicle outright, which is why we own, about half of them outright and about half of them are lease vehicles.
Okay, all right. I'm fine. Okay, those were the only main ones. We did get Weaver Morgan Health, right, on that? Leslie? Okay.
Okay,
So we don't have to pay them anything additional other than the tax. Is that correct?
correct. Yeah, they just get their tax line item due.
Okay.
Okay, Sheriff, do you want to talk about your item? I know the jail contract is not available. Do you want to come up?
So our jail contract is up this year. I don't know what it's going to be. I know it's probably going to increase because they are trying to add on down there, doing a bond and all that. I have had one of them reach out to me, so they want to talk over a contract. Right now we pay $70,000 a year for it. And it depends on how long we have people in there. So I think yesterday when I looked, we had 28,000 left for the next couple months. I don't know if we're behind on any bills. I don't know if they're behind on sending us any. But I do see that going up probably between 5 and 10% this next year.
So if we budgeted 70, if we put 80, you think we'll be safe for now?
I would think so.
That's more than 10%, a little more than 10%.
And then, like I said, our court cases are up between all of our courts. We're up 600% on our court cases between our guys. So
Well, and as far as the jail bill goes, it's not a flat amount, it's an amount per day,
Per
right?
day.
Per inmate.
I think we pay like 53 a day or something, 55 a day or whatever it is
So,
per inmate.
okay.
The state has raised theirs to 73 a day, unless they're in some sort of a program that can go up to 90 something a day. But I bet ours will reach up to about 60 to 62, would be my guess.
Okay. I still think we put 80 in there and call it good. Unless they come back and it's like a 20% increase. If it's less than a 10% increase, 80 should cover it fine. But if it's more, then we probably ought to add a little.
That's what I had.
What's that?
That's all I had. And then
Okay.
we had that going on. So,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, sounds great. All right, anything else for work session discussion? I think we've still got a couple of minutes here. Yeah, go ahead.
This one? I've never done that before. Oh, you don't? Okay, they work really good. So Tyler Kelsey came up and he brought the little booklet that I included for you guys to look at, because we can have our dental insurance go down in cost and save the county $11,000 a year if you'd like us to change this year. I would be for it because $11,000 is a good savings, and it would just change us from Dental Select, who has just been sold out to another company, and we would go to Delta Dental. And he said most likely there'd be a few people that might complain, but we have 38 people that are on our insurance, and if we change to that one change, it would save the county $11,000. The optical, we have the best coverage under optical, and so there's no need to change because they all go up from what we already have, and we have decent coverage for our optical. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention because the decision would have to be made quickly so that he can have time to get the packets ready that go out, and we're gonna have open enrollment start November 8th. So, it wouldn't, well, actually, it would change how much we pay monthly, but it would also lower, everybody that's on the dental program would go down a little, of that 11,000,
What portion of that does the county currently pay?
90%.
Of dental as well? But it would reduce our
And
premiums for the employees as well.
yes. They don't pay a lot right now, and so they never complain about it because it's cheap anyway. And since we pay 90, they pay very, very little. But yeah, so we would save 11,000 and they would save a little.
If feel like health insurance is a pretty big deal to change, but dental
Yeah.
insurance usually isn't a huge deal because most,
That's what
yeah,
And we did check, and
Just my thought.
the local Morgan dentists do take the Delta Dental, and I think it's a decent coverage. Anybody have any clue? Okay.
How long have we been on Dental Select?
I think he said like 4 years, maybe. That's good. Yeah.
Remarkable, we change ours every 2.
Really?
Because just because the way dental providers
Yeah, it's
adjust
crazy.
their premiums.
It's crazy. He recommended another one that would have saved us possibly 17,000 a year, but as I dug in and asked more questions, he said he wouldn't recommend them as far as customer service, and that's probably not a good thing to do to our people if they're going to have struggle getting their bills paid. I would rather not, but there is a way to save a little bit more if you want. It's called Renaissance. Anybody heard of that one?
I've not heard of that one. I have heard of Delta Dental and Dental Select.
And
I mean, I'd be in
Dental
favor of
Select is
making that change. I think that's.
Emeritus is now Dental Select. Changed to Emeritus. So can I get your approval to go forward with that change? Because it's a lot of just paperwork on our end, but, and then everybody would get new cards, even though they're gonna get new ones for Emeritus real quick. So, what do you think?
I'm good with it.
Sounds good to me.
I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
Matt, are you online? Can you hear us okay?
I am.
Do you have any
Can you hear
objections to
me?
that? We can, yep.
No, absolutely not. No, I'm good with it as well.
Okay, oh, and one other thing on the back, very back page of that booklet, the life insurance did not change, so we paid what we paid for that.
We can take a moment and go through the commissioner comments if you want, or we can take a 15-minute break here before our meeting starts.
I don't have.
I don't have anything this evening either, so.
I will.
Okay, go for it.
We can be quick on either end of this meeting.
Basically, last week on Thursday, we had a meeting with the, it was with the WFRC and the UDOT on safety issues throughout the county. And they're doing a study, again, as to finding the, and it was based upon where's the most critical needs that we have as far as the safety area within our area. This is just a workshop. But in that workshop, they were discussing the, some points, and we said, well, there's these other points, and they says, have we had an accident? Because it doesn't show up on their information, because we haven't had a lot of critical accidents or fatal accidents at these points. And I says, well, these are areas that need to be. Austin Turner was there, Brett was there, I was there from the county, and then there were some people from the city, and so they were going through that. So if there's any input you want to have into that, let me give them to me, and then I'll just forward it on to them as far as any issues and areas that we need to be concerned about. The other item, and when you get older, you start to forget that short-term thought. And I can't remember now.
I had somebody reach out to me about wayfinding signage at a couple of intersections in Mountain Green that they're willing to pay for, but they would go into the public right of way. Josh, do you know what would be required to do that, wayfinding signs in a public right of way? Well, these would be within county rights of way, as opposed to state rights of way. No. Well, like the airport, some of the other areas that are served, including some of the neighborhoods, is what they were wanting to do, and I don't know if it's permitted or what's required, if it is permitted, so. Well, if we were putting them in, I'm sure that would be the case.
So I would just get with Brett Heiner on it.
Okay.
In the past, when we've had requests on signage, he's been really easy to work with, and like Public Works will even go and put them out.
Okay. I'll talk to Brett about that. I have to follow up with him on the estimate on that trail as well, because I haven't heard anything on that. Have you heard anything?
Yeah, I have. It's gonna be about $110,000 on the trail in Cottonwoods and about $40,000 on the one in Enterprise Park.
Okay.
Okay? And this is gonna be a good one for Corey. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but the state legislature is, since they're requiring officers to be in the schools, they're looking at funding it. So that way you don't have to, or we don't have to. So that'll be a good thing for us, one way or another. And as far as opioid money that's coming in HB 61, it has some information on that, and I don't know, I have not studied it. In case you want to start looking at it, you can. But it's the AG's office would like to know of some different ways in which we can spend some of that money as a group and take a portion of what we receive to go to a fund to be able to help something that they're doing. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It was too long ago, 2 weeks ago. One of the other things we're working on in the state legislature area is the TRT, TRCC, and restaurant taxes. They are working on a bill this year to make sure that we collect it for any kind of prepared food that they sell at any kind of convenience stores, gas stations, whatever it might be. They will have to pay their portion of, they won't have to, the consumer will pay a portion of the taxes on that sales tax. So, and you've got my, this is the other thing. I want to say this to the public. We've been getting a lot of requests or people saying, well, if I could ever get internet into our areas, or if I could ever get, where can we get good internet? We actually have some good internet. We don't have fiber throughout the county. But, I hear the complaint all the time at church and everywhere. Everywhere I go, they say, we can't get internet in the county. Well, we actually can, but you have to go, and there's a lot of different areas. I'm not saying it's good internet yet. It's not perfect internet, but instead of having to go with Starlink, you can actually get internet throughout the majority of the valley now through Liberty. And we spent some money with them back 2.5 years ago to put that infrastructure in. They have not gone out and sent out a blanket thing saying, hey, your area is got it covered. And the reason they're not is because hopefully people come and ask them to put in the internet in their home and test it, make sure that everything is working great. I know that they're working on a tower down at up near Snow Basin that will get all of the highlands. So every place in the highlands will be able to get it as long as they can see that tower at this point. In Peterson area and Milton area, I know you can get it because there's a couple of towers over towards Commissioner McConnell's house, that there's a tower out there that can do everybody. So when people go and tell me I can't get good internet or my internet's bad, they need to start looking at what they can do. Give me a call. It's Liberty Broadband, and I've got a phone number. Maybe I'll have them put it on the website, on Morgan County's website. Liberty will get it. There's also Beehive along Morgan Valley Drive through a certain portion. And after we spend all the money with them, they still have not got it completed. And even Corey, I think, can get internet up at his house. And there's some areas up in different areas that might be blocked by trees. And at that point, then we have to just work with a repeater system. But until you go and request it, you're not gonna get internet. It's not just gonna automatically come to you. You gotta search for good internet. And Liberty Broadband is one that we helped to be able to make it into our valley. And they are almost completely covered in the whole valley. And if it's not, we'll work on it. And those are areas that we can help everybody. So I'm hoping that everybody will, if you don't have a good internet, you need to go and request it. And if we need to put up another tower, we'll see about putting up another tower. So I'm requesting that everybody, if you don't have it, and I know up in Croydon area, you've got the All West now up there, fiber, or have they put it in yet?
They're finishing now. They're doing the last runs to homes and stuff, but the main line is in.
So we're working on some what do you call it, grants for next year for fiber to put throughout the whole county. And so there is that option, but it's gonna take 2 to 3 years to get fiber throughout the whole county. So until then, you've got at least a good internet. I get 150 megabytes up and down. It's almost all the time. And I'm paying $60 a month for it. So, if I'm paying 60, somebody else can pay 60 also and have a good service. So that was basically that peeve of mine.
All right, we've got 5 minutes before the beginning of our meeting. If anybody needs to take a little break here, and then we'll begin our meeting at the top of the hour. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. We'll ask everybody to take your seats and we'll get started. Welcome to the Morgan County Commission meeting. Today is October 17th, 2023. To start out this evening, we've got a special treat. We'll have the swearing in of our interim assessor, Mrs. Janelle Walker. We're excited for this and appreciate all of her efforts in the past in the assessor's office and her future efforts that'll take place here. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to our clerk auditor, Leslie Hyde, to administer the oath of office.
You'll need to do it in front of the mic. Just grab that mic. You might have to, because otherwise it does not work. Nobody will hear it. Can you hear it though? Test it.
Test.
There you go. Okay, you have to raise your right hand though.
Yes.
Hello. Okay. I, Janelle Walker,
I, Janelle Walker,
having been appointed to the office of
having been appointed to the office of
Morgan County Assessor,
Morgan County Assessor,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, that'd be wonderful. Please do. Family, come up here. Get your picture taken. This is a pretty momentous occasion. So, and I also want to acknowledge all the family and friends and employees that have come to support Janelle.
Ready? 3. Okay, everyone else. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Stop.
You know Leslie was just taking a bunch of selfies there.
That's why she was making funny faces. Awesome. Congratulations, Janelle. We appreciate you and look forward to working with you for many years. We will begin with an invocation and pledge of allegiance for our regular meeting here. I will offer that and lead the pledge of allegiance, and then we'll move into our consent items. Our Father in heaven, we're so very grateful for the community in which we live. We're grateful for Morgan County. We're thankful for the blessings that we enjoy here. We ask Thee to bless us as we discuss the needs and the goings-on of our county, that we will be inspired to make wise decisions and that we will be able to listen to and understand the needs of our community. We're grateful for the people that live here and ask Thee to continue to bless all those that live in Morgan County. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. If you've been with us in the past, you probably noticed some changes in this room. We've got a lot of screens around us here. We were just talking about watching the Super Bowl in here. It'd be quite interesting. But it's new technology, so bear with us if we forget to turn on a mic. We'll try to do a good job at that. If you do address the commission, we'll ask you to make sure that you're speaking in a microphone so that you can be heard on the online recording, both the recording and the online broadcast. Okay, with that, we will move into item B, our consent items. We have 2 items this evening. The first is the approval of the October 3rd, 2023 meeting minutes.
So on action item number 5, the Wasatch Peaks Ranch, you have all of the votes listed. And did Commissioner Wilson not vote? I don't see. Oh, okay. So maybe we should just put absent there.
I also gave her some other changes also, and she's changed them, so.
Okay, perfect. With that, we'll look for a motion on the meeting minutes from October 3rd.
You know, Mike, before we make that, unless somebody online decides they want to, it's gonna be Robert making every decision today, and I'm gonna second everything. So, Robert,
You mean the motions?
the motions.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the County Commission meeting minutes for October 3rd, 2023 with the changes indicated.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What about Matt?
Aye.
Good.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Commissioner Anderson, have you been able to join us online? He was going to join us.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can hear you. Yep.
We can hear everything you say twice.
You both sound good. All right. I did fail to mention Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Wilson are both traveling. They're joining us online, so we do have a full quorum even with just the 3 of us here, but we have all commissioners present, just 2 are online. Consent item number 2 is the approval of Board of Equalization adjustments. Board of Equalization adjustments are adjustments to tax values for property. These are the evaluations that were challenged and then have gone through and been heard by a hearing officer, and we have all of those before us. Those were emailed out to the commission. Any questions on the BOE adjustments?
How many of them had to go further than just our U? Mhm. Yeah.
So we had 18 that actually went to the hearing officer.
Okay.
That we had a hearing officer basically make that decision. And
So did any of them get appealed up to the state level?
as of now, no. They have 60 days to be able to appeal.
Okay.
So we will need to just make sure that we'll have to have those approvals of what the hearing officer, and I know Mike is signing those. And then we also have the spreadsheet that we have made adjustments that were in-house basically, that we had made adjustments to, that will need to just be signed. So I'll need to have them sign that as well. Okay?
We're fortunate. One of the other
We are.
semi-rural counties, I think, has 1,400 appeals.
They usually have thousands, and we're very lucky, especially with all of our adjustments that we had made for this year as well, so
Okay.
pretty good.
Janelle, do you want to talk really briefly for the benefit of the public?
Sure.
You know, that's something that comes up a lot is the assessed value. And I want to be really clear that the assessed value, how it's calculated and what it's based on, and that the assessed value doesn't necessarily determine your tax amount. What determines your tax amount is the budget.
Exactly.
So we take the budget, we divide it by the total taxable value. We actually don't do it, the State Tax Commission does. divided by the total taxable value of all property in the county, and that determines the rate. So if the county does a budget increase on our property tax line item, that ends up being a tax increase. If the county does a decrease on the property tax line item, that's a budget decrease and results in a decrease. Or if we don't adjust at all, we stay the same. If the valuation goes up, the rate comes down. So, but do you want to just briefly describe how the evaluations are determined?
So our job as assessors is to make sure that we are at market value. Our lien date is as of January 1st. So as of January 1st of every year, we say, what is the market doing? What has it done from the year previous? And so we do all of our changes of each quarter, and if it's gone up or down or changed in any way, we make sure that we have that into our compliance of what we're going to put as market value. And then we set a market value for every area. With mass appraisal, we have groups or sections of areas with like houses or like property. And so we value those properties by a group. Sometimes, maybe they have a little outlier that someone maybe is over built or underbuilt, that we adjust as well. So we try to get as close as we can to the market value as of January 1st for every recipient of basically that has a parcel. As that goes on, we have until May 22nd to be able to make that adjustment. So we make those adjustments, and then we place a market value on their home and on their land. And then after that, then we say, okay, this is the market value that we came up with for this year. After that, then there is adjustments or the residential exemption that is made. So if you live there 183 days or more, you qualify for that exemption. So that's where you see only 55% of your tax value is being taxed as your tax when it comes out. After that, there is other adjustments that are made as well. If there's any circuit breakers or anything that happens, the Board of Equalization is also part of that as well, that we make adjustments with. And then after that, that's where we come up with our taxes of how much the county needs. So our job as the assessor is just making sure that we have the correct value for your home or land.
Thank you.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Okay, with that, we have an action item here on the Board of Equalization adjustments.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the 2023 Board of Equalization adjustments as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, we will move to declarations of conflict of interest from commissioners on any items on tonight's agenda. Okay, seeing none, we will now move to our public comment period. This is an opportunity for the public to address the commission. You may come to the microphone and address the commission now. Okay, seeing none, we do not have any presentations this evening, so we will move into our action items. The first action item, Leslie Hyde, approval of tentative Morgan County 2024 budget.
So we have the budget prepared for your tentative approval. We have a few changes from what's in your packet. We've discussed them in the work session. Do you want me to go through them? How much?
Commissioner Anderson wasn't on for those, so maybe mention those just briefly.
Okay. So the jail, we did not budget for the jail. The contract ends the end of this year, and so we're waiting for the new contract. We're going to tentatively put in $80,000 to hope that won't be more than that with the increase. We need to make an adjustment for the ambulance permanent employees. We will be increasing their permanent employee budget by $5,414 for increased hours for the administrative assistant. Page 9, which is GIS, we will be increasing the equipment, supplies, and maintenance budget by $10,854 for the increase for the ESRI licenses. The garbage fund, we're going to remove $5,000 from one of those line items because there's a duplicate in there. Yep, we just caught that error thanks to Commissioner Fackrell. The recreation budget, we'll be taking $66,769 from the general fund to balance the recreation fund, and that will be for wages. And then we're going to budget $1,500 for the Dyer's Road program, and that will be in the weed department. We are going to budget $15,000 in the fair account within the general fund for compensation for fair workers. And I think that was it.
Thank you. That's exactly what we discussed in the work session. Any questions, commissioners? Comments? Okay.
Mike,
Yes.
do you want to let the public know what we've done as far as the total or final amount because of that?
We can. We haven't decided what we're going to do with that total and final balance. I will mention that currently we are within budget, so there will be no need for any property tax adjustment from the county. So Morgan County does not intend to do a property tax increase or adjustment this year.
And I think the whole reason that we have to approve this tentative budget now is so our treasurer knows we're not increasing taxes. She can go to print and tax notices are gonna go out, so.
Yeah, we won't be sending a notice of
Right.
meeting for adjustment.
So are we going to decrease the taxes or not?
We potentially could decrease that line item. We'll need to know the exact number to do it.
I was gonna say,
Could
'cause
potentially do
that needs to happen before she can tell the treasurer to go and do her, to do the printing, so.
that. Actually, I think that can happen after.
Oh, because it will be next year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's next year's printing.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, it can happen
So
after.
fine this year. It will
Okay.
be next year's rate. so
It's just,
yeah.
if we intended to increase the taxes
Yes.
this year, we have to put it on the notice that's going out this year.
That's correct.
Okay,
We can make that adjustment.
okay, all right. I just want everybody to know
I-
that we're under budget,
Yeah, we are currently under budget by a little bit.
which
I
is
sent
good.
this out to all the department heads, only a few of them got back to me with a few questions,
Minor
and I think we
adjustments.
talked about them tonight, so.
Okay, perfect. All right. So with that, we'll look for a motion to give tentative approval for the Morgan County 2024 budget.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the tentative Morgan County 2024 budget.
And I'll second it.
I have a motion to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We'll move to action item number 2. Boyd Kerrigan, our fire chief, for a review of the fire department fee schedule.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks for your time. Our newly implemented fire department fee schedule was adopted January of 2022. It is now nearly 2 years old, so I thought it'd be a good time to review it. As you know, our main goal for implementing the fire department fee schedule was to recoup some of our fire prevention division costs, which include the fire marshal's services rendered. As you also know, residential and commercial new structure being the most time consuming. These new structure plan reviews consist of reviewing the structure drawings for any IFC deficiencies and includes 2 site visits, one at Four-Way and one at Final. We also work with each individual on their fire protection plan. On average, a residential plan review with site visits can take up to 10 hours. These hours are generally spread out over the billing process, which can take up to 6 months to a year to complete, depending on square footage, and may include fire chief and or fire warden hours on these projects. Also, any structure over the 10,000 square feet, which we have in the county now, will take 2 years to complete and involves several hours of time for both fire marshal, fire chief, and fire warden. If we look at our current fire marshal operating costs, wage $28,000, vehicle lease $6,000, computer programs $500, code books $250, miscellaneous office supplies, puts the total operating costs per year at $35,250. If we divide that by his hours, it's $35 per hour to operate our fire marshal. Under our current fee schedule for 2023, our generated revenue so far is $7,625.90, which if we break it down, it's $14 per hour we are currently recovering of the $35 cost per hour to operate. Our projected revenue for 2023 was $15,000, and as you can see, we are far short of our goal. Our per year goal for services rendered should be $18,000 to equal the $35,000 per hour, which would be half the fire warden's or the fire marshal's hours. I would like to propose an increase in fees from $150 to $200 flat fee for all homes 1 to 3,600 square feet, and from $200 to $300 flat fee for all homes 3,600 square feet and above, with the addition of 13 cents per square foot for all detached garages, sheds, commercial, and multifamily structures. So why break out detached garage, sheds, commercial, and multifamily structures? Simply they are different structures, not homes. Some are simple like sheds and detached garages, others are more time consuming like commercial and multifamily. If we look at the average detached garage, 2-car garage, a 20 by 20, would be 400 square feet times 13 cents, would be $52 for the applicant, equals to 1.5 hours. The average commercial size, let's say the McDonald's, 4,000 square feet, times the 13 cents, would be $250 to the applicant, or 14 hours. The average size multifamily structure, square footage, would be 6,000 feet, times the 0.13 cents per square foot, $780 to the applicant, or 22 fire marshal hours. These are basically 4 homes in one. So we did complete a conservative potential revenue recovery study for year 2022. 62 building permits pulled. We times it by the $200 for homes over 3,600 square feet, equals $12,400 in revenue recovered for services rendered, or $24 an hour. Same scenario with a proposed new fee schedule. 62 building permits pulled times the $300 over 3,600 square feet equals $18,600 in revenue recovered for services rendered, or the $35 per hour we're needing to reach our goal. Again, if approved, we could move forward to achieving our goals. Do you have any questions?
I do not. I appreciate all the work that went into this. You clearly spent a lot of time determining this, and that's something that's important when we're setting a fee schedule, I think. So I like the proposal. I'm in favor of it.
And I will say, having the opportunity to compare these fees to some other jurisdictions, these are still quite reasonable.
And I have an opposing item for you.
Okay.
If we're trying to base it upon a $35 per hour on this fee schedule, shouldn't we be doing the same thing? Because you've got, like, it takes for inspections, fire sprinkler, 2 hours, and your amount's $50. That's nowhere close to the 35. So my recommendation is that we go through the rest of the fee schedule and do the same scenario at $35 an hour versus the 25. That's my recommendation. You've got, on the residential, you've got a plan review, includes plus 2 site visits at Four-Way and 1 at Final for a 3,600 square foot building is $150, and then anything above that, the same, what you've been talking about, is $200, which is only $50 more. And if you're gonna build a home that's 5,000 square feet, I don't know, I just don't feel like that's a very, I explained it to you before. It's almost too bad we can't do it based upon the square footage on those site reviews. Like you're doing with the 13 cents for the square footage. What about the same thing on the site building review, or also on the residential, or any of these items? I just want to be fair in everything that we're doing. For instance, you've got the Polaris Ranger with 2 firefighters for $25 for a 2-hour minimum. That doesn't even equal up to half of their pay. So I'm just saying that if we're going to do it for one, we ought to be doing it for all, just to be fair. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't oppose that at all. I think what's before us now is the adjustment on this particular item, but I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go through the other items as well at a future date and update those. if
Yeah,
that's
I'd like
reasonable.
But they're actually measuring two different things though, right? You've got your fire marshal charges are related to plan reviews and building inspections. Some of these other charges relate to uses for other stuff, so, but I'm happy to hear the proposed changes in the remaining parts of the schedule as well.
Okay.
Okay, with that, unless there's any comments from Commissioner Anderson or Commissioner Wilson. Okay, with that, we'll look for.
No.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the fire department fee schedule adjustments and review based as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item number 3, we've removed from our agenda this evening. That will be placed on a future agenda. We're still waiting on an agreement for that.
Just
So
a
we
real quick
move-
update on your.
Oh, yes,
fire
sorry.
department. Yeah,
Boyd.
you're fine.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to just let you know, our call volume so far, so for 2022, we were at 620 calls last year. For 2023, right now, we're at 657, and we still have 3 months to go. We're fully staffed. We just finished a Fire 1 and Fire 2 class, 15 firefighters. Starting in January of next year, we'll be doing an advanced EMT class and a wildland class. We'll also be starting the Line Creek Fuels Mitigation Project using the $200,000 grant we received. And with any luck, your new fire engine should be here in April. So fire and EMS programs are working great, and we'd love to have any other direction from council, but so far we're looking really good.
Any
Question.
questions for Boyd?
Yeah. Question I have is on the fire engine, the old one, which will be the old one, what do you think we're gonna be able to get out of it? And
So
are we
I
gonna just,
Sure, with that, I think what we'd like to do is take engine 122, which carries the most water, and turn it into a water tender.
okay,
And engine 122, if you so choose, we could probably sell that one. We've checked into what they're going for right now, and a truck like that could pull about 150,000. So we could keep it. It's paid for. We'd have to find a place to put it. But if the county ever decides to put up a new station somewhere else in the county, that would be a great piece of apparatus. And the old brush truck would be another piece of apparatus you could definitely use at another station if you wanted to expand.
but if we're getting rid of them because of reliability or whatever, then why would we want to keep it?
It's a good truck. I wouldn't use it as your first out, as far as reliability, but for a third out, it's definitely worth it. Or if you wanted to expand, it would definitely be a great truck.
I think what we, and Boyd and I talked a little bit about this, but what we'd like to do is sometime next year, when we know a delivery date on the new engine, Boyd and I will sit down and put together some proposals with a couple of different scenarios, and then we can talk about with the commission what the best scenario might be.
Yep.
So we can look at those options. I mean, sometimes having a used piece of equipment is better than none. Then again, if we don't have a place to put it, it could be an issue too. So we need to talk about that and decide what the best course of action would be.
Yep.
Put it in the search and rescue, building, where the boat is. So have we heard anything as far as proposals or anything for the water tank truck, whatever it is you got?
As far as the water tender,
Yeah.
yeah, so the water tenders currently is still broke down. We are using a water tender that we have at East Canyon. So we're pulling that down here and we're gonna set it up here as an alternative. It doesn't carry as much water, but it can be used until we figure out what to do with the other water tender. But the plan is to, once we have new money for next year, look at fixing that motor and getting it back in service.
Thank you.
All right,
For
thank
me.
you.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you. And thank you. Please thank your volunteers for us. The technology, it's pretty cool. All right, we're going to go to action item number 4. Jeremy Lance, this is you.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Action item F4 on tonight's agenda is application number 23.037. This is a request to amend 2 lots within the Peterson subdivision plat amendment number 4 in the Highlands subdivision to consolidate 2 lots into one. Identified by the parcel numbers and serial numbers in your staff report meeting packet, and is generally located at 5833 and 5837 Uwinna Street in Mountain Green. The current zoning is R120. The general plan designates this area as village, low density residential. The acreage combined between the 2 lots is 7.29 acres. This item was heard by the Planning Commission at their regularly scheduled meeting on September 28th. There were no public comments for this item, and discussion from the Planning Commission included the nature of an easement displayed on the plat that goes through the property itself, including underneath the currently constructed dwelling. The applicant answered that he was not sure about the nature of the easement, except that it could be a phone line easement. The Planning Commission
Could be a what kind of easement?
phone line easement. The Planning Commission suggested to both staff and the applicant to discover the nature of the easement and to possibly explore the option to abandon. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval to this body unanimously with members Bass and Little absent. Staff is recommending that this project be approved and finds that it meets all minimum code requirements. And I'm not entirely sure if the applicant is in the audience tonight, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah. Did you think there wouldn't be?
Go for it.
All right. I already talked to Josh about it a little bit, but I want you guys to also hear my questions and complaints. I see this as a joining 2 properties that I don't understand the reason. They own them both. This is a residential area that is 1-20. Why does it need to be joined when you've got them adjoining each other as it is right now?
Sure.
state statute lines out property rights regarding properties for consolidation and division. And if a property owner owns two adjoining properties, they have every right to submit a plat amendment to consolidate those lots.
And I'm gonna ask the assessor.
Okay?
The assessor, I would like to know, they want to adjoin these two properties, and are they planning on doing, I mean, what's gonna happen to the value of their property since they're joining them together?
Well, they'll still have a value that will be placed, and it's a large area, so it's like, it was 7.29, right?
Yeah.
So what will happen is it will be valued as all of that property. So, I know that you're gonna ask the question, Greenbelt, right?
Mhm.
So the Farm Assessment Act was 1969, that was placed in Utah to help the ranchers and farmers. And they get a huge discount off of their taxes, a tax break for them to be
Huge
able
break.
to use it agriculturally. Now, if this person decides to say, I deserve Greenbelt, they will have to go through those actions of making sure that they're staying in compliance and that it is used as agriculturally, whether they're farming it or whether they have animals on it. So they would have to basically fence the whole thing off, and maybe that's what they want to do. They will have a section of wherever their home lies, and if they have yard or anything else, like a garden or anything, you know, if they have a structure behind or anything like that, then that gets taken out of Greenbelt. But if it's 5 acres or more that they have, yep, 5 acres or more, so if they had 6 acres and they're using it 100% agriculturally, they do qualify for Greenbelt.
And I don't mind that if they use it for correct.
But it's not used as a pretty
Yes,
valley.
as an open space or whatever.
Space that they can go, it's not a recreational valley, basically, or a recreational area. It needs to be used as agriculture.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if the two parcels remained under separate ownership, because they're adjacent, couldn't they still request the Greenbelt?
That's correct.
Correct, they still
Simply
still
because they
could.
have a total
Mhm,
acreage.
Cause it's a total acreage of 5 acres or more.
Yeah.
So it can be adjoining and it can be different parcels, so
Right.
that is also.
And they also, I mean, with that, they have to, I mean, if they haven't been doing it now, that's why I'm saying, why do they need to? Because if they passed away, sorry, I'm too close to it. If they passed away and they were to sell it, their heirs were to sell it to somebody else, maybe they would then come back into us and ask us for a division of their property again,
Sure.
so they can sell it. So at this point, I don't see a reason for doing it, other than they've requested it, to put them together. I just don't see a reason in it.
I'm sure the owner has some kind of reason to put it together. I know that with the deeding part, it's probably a little easier to have one line adjustment or one legal description than have two legal descriptions. But I really feel like, you know, if they want to put them together, then as long as they're adhering to, if they decide to use that, because it is it's a huge benefit that needs to be used properly. And so I feel like if they are, you know, whether they put their horses on it or however they decide, it does have as well, the Greenbelt has per animal, so it's so many animals per acre that they need to have on there for a certain amount of time as well, so they would need to try and keep that compliance in there.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned about why they would want that other than Greenbelt. And, I mean, it's
But it
basic-
doesn't improve their ability to do Greenbelt to.
No, they have to still prove Greenbelt.
I
If
know,
they
but
don't
whether,
prove it-
whether it was 1 lot or 2 lots, they could still apply for Greenbelt, so.
It's basically
Yeah,
6.
That's
right.
not a reason to do it.
Right.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't do it for marketability of the property later on, but.
That's right, I
That's,
wouldn't either.
that's their right and decision if they wanna combine the lots, that's fine.
Okay.
Any other question?
No.
Good? Okay, thanks.
So is this proposed plat that's in the packet, it says Morgan County Council at the bottom, so we ought to correct that. Is this the actual plat amendment that we're looking at?
Yeah, that's the proposed plat amendment, and it's using language taken directly from our code.
Okay, but the authorizing body will still be different than the Morgan County Council, so.
That's correct. I'll have
Okay.
it corrected.
And then with respect to this easement, it would be good to vacate that. Is it shown on the plat because it was on the original plat of subdivision?
Yeah, I believe when the individual that drafted it, they put on the easements that were there before. The house has been there approximately 16 years. Easement's still there. I'm not sure how difficult it'd be to vacate it, but it probably should be.
If you can't even identify what it is, it's gonna be really hard. That's what I was wondering, if there was a note on that plat that identified.
I didn't
What it
see one.
was.
I can double check.
Okay.
I have nothing else.
Okay. With that, we'll look for a motion on item number 4.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the Peterson subdivision plat amendment number 4, application 23.037, located at 5833 and 5837 Uinta Street in Mountain Green, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated October 17th, 2023.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
We've got 7 of us.
Okay, perfect. All right, we will move to item number 5. Jeremy or Josh?
At the last county commission meeting, during the work session, we had briefly discussed the PC zoning district overlay, gone through some of the language. You had requested it be added to this meeting as a discussion item. So we're here to continue that discussion. Is there a specific area you'd like to start at? Were there other comments, concerns, changes?
So in the purpose section, 813A-10,
Yep.
the second to last paragraph, the sentence that says further the rezoning process to the PC district overlay is a negotiation between the developer and the county. I think we should recharacterize that and indicate that it's a legislative, like application of a PC district overlay is a legislative decision by the county commission, something like that. I don't doubt there will be some negotiation as we look at the various elements that the developer's proposing to justify the application of this zone, but.
Right. I started to reword that based on our discussion at the last, but I hadn't finished it yet, so I didn't put it in.
In 813A-020, the future land use map amendment, this is the third sentence. Submittal will allow the applicant or developer to gauge the community's level of support for the proposed rezone. I understand where, I think I understand what that's directed at. I guess I'm a little hesitant to include language that suggests that it's outside of the legislative discretion of the county commission.
Okay.
That we can't delegate that decision-making authority to the public regardless, or the community regardless of their level of support. But I think practically, going through this process would certainly allow people to evaluate the community's level of support. I just don't know that it's good to include that language in the ordinance itself.
Is there draft language you would recommend I change it to?
I think I would change the language
allow the applicant or developer to present proposals, and, you know, that may be just broader than the word proposals, whatever they're submitting for purposes, to members of the public and the applicable land use bodies. And just get away from gauging the support. Just they're presenting it, they're letting people know, they're informing the public. That's all great. That's all wonderful.
Okay.
Question along that same line. It says the submittal will allow the applicant or developer. How come we're using applicant or developer? Hopefully the applicant's the same person. Why are we using developer in that circumstance?
Because sometimes the applicant is the actual property owner, whereas other times the developer's negotiating with the property owner and doesn't actually own the property yet.
I'm just wondering why we have throughout here, it's all applicant or developer or owner and developer. And I understand that, you know, Mike might want to have a developer come and develop his property, but he's the applicant.
Not necessarily.
Okay, then why can't the developer be the applicant?
Well, the developer could be the applicant, but I'm trying to
So that's
cover-
all I'm saying is why are we using or? I'm just curious. Why not just have the applicant?
Probably could just say applicant. That probably-
That's all I'm asking is why can't we use just the word applicant versus
Okay.
developer?
Change.
I mean, I wanted to ask Robert basically whether or not that's correct language or not. I'm just, why do we have to have
I think the
both?
current language is broader to pick up situations when you have both an applicant and an owner, and sometimes only one will be in front for purposes of a given meeting, and other times they're both there. I think either way is workable from my perspective, but.
Just seems like we're giving a lot of requests to the developers only. And what if I'm an applicant and my brother-in-law wants to build a house on my property, if I had enough property, and they want to build one on my property, I'm still going to be the applicant. He's going to develop and put a house on there, a multi-family house. I don't know what he's going to do. I'm just saying it. I'm just looking at wording.
So,
An
are you
appli-
going to represent the proposal, or is your brother going to represent the proposal?
That's
Because-
basically what I'm saying. Is it? And I'm just saying, can it be one or the other, or is it?
Well, the language would provide for either one could work.
I just think that if an applicant's gonna be the applicant, or maybe just say the owner of the property, I don't care. I just see that it's throughout this whole document, it says applicant or developer, applicant or owner or developer, property, whatever, and developer. It's always ends up developer, then let's just change it all to a developer.
I think if you're gonna go with a single word, the word would be applicant.
Okay.
Well, that's all I'm saying too.
Change it to applicant.
In 1813A 030, so the third to the last sentence in the paragraph, the PC zone overlay may consist of any number or combination of the following land use styles that shall be identified in the community structure plan as provided in this chapter. So use of the word following makes me think I'm going to get a list, but I don't right away. I get another sentence that says specific land uses proposed in the PC zone overlay shall follow the allowed land uses within the underlying zone. And then we say the following general land use types as opposed to styles need to be incorporated into the narrative provided by the developer and may include a mixture. So we've got land use styles and land use types, and then just the structure of the paragraph.
Okay, I'll
Just-
restructure it.
Yeah.
And I guess in that case, we're taking developer out and putting applicant, right?
Yeah, I'll do a mass word change.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
813A040, the introductory paragraph, just at the end, you've got both the period and colon.
Did you have comments about the actual styles?
I don't.
Okay.
Now, when you get to 813A050, single-family residential development, each PC zone overlay that incorporates residential development shall contain a minimum of 50 acres. So first of all, you would need to qualify that by single-family residential development because multifamily is residential development as well. But I'm wondering about the use of 50 acres. That's a fairly large development, and are we saying that there's no advantage to using a PC zone overlay in a development of 10 acres or 15 or 20 or 30?
I originally recommended 5, but the planning commission wanted 50.
So I think that's something for the commission to contemplate. I don't think this isn't up for approval tonight, but I think it is something to contemplate. I mean, I understand larger overlays depending upon the requirements, because the requirements themselves may be significant enough that if you don't have a significant amount of acreage, you won't go through the process. But I can also contemplate, particularly not with your rural use, but with your neighborhood use, where you can have smaller lots. If you had a 10-acre project, and we also need to think about the open space requirement at 50%, that's a high percentage.
Right.
But let's say we stuck with 50%, and you've got 10 acres, and you're preserving 5 acres in some kind of open space, half of which is active and half of which is not. That's still a decent size open space, and it might be advantageous to provide some additional density to do that. So I don't know that you guys are ready to discuss that tonight, but that's something that I think we need to think about. Obviously, the Planning Commission's recommendation is 50 acres, but that's something I would want to consider. And then PC zone overlay for multifamily, commercial, and industrial contain a minimum of 10 acres. That's a little closer, I suppose, but.
One of the things I also look at with that 50 acres, and of course you've got the other zone up above, which is under, or maybe it's below, under 50 acres. Is it the same basically for both?
No, the paragraphs above are the tiers which regulate the submittal requirements for those applications.
There's basically, in our county, sure, super large land owners, they might have this, but say I've got 18 acres and I want to go and have a single-family lots throughout the whole thing. Can I do that with this zoning?
Yeah, with the current way it's set out, with the Planning Commission recommendation of 50 acres, you would not do that.
And so in Tier 1, could you?
Not if it's
Because right now it
residential.
says it must be 50 acres. If it's commercial, then it could be 10, as small as 10 acres.
Yep, so if you're at 50 acres for a residential development, you would fall under Tier 1. If you're 50.0001, you're going into Tier 2.
So most probably aren't going to fall under Tier 1 for residential, then, under the current
Under the current
designation.
draft, yeah.
You know, I know one of the issues that was had with the PRUD ordinance in the past was that we had a lot of very small acreage properties come in and use that ordinance, and you'd end up with an open space of, you know, I don't know, a quarter acre or less, tenth of an acre, and it ends up being a weed patch. And it's not usable for anybody because it doesn't adjoin somebody else's property. And that was one of the issues that had come up. So I do think it's important to have a minimum. Perhaps 50 is a little bit high. You know, I think 5 is a little bit low, to be honest, but maybe 10 makes sense. I don't know, maybe. Because I agree, you know, even on a 10 or 20 acre parcel, you could still have a decent sized common space that could be usable for something and make a difference. I mean, if you have open space of a quarter acre, nobody's going to notice that it's open space. But if you have 5 acres of open space, that's something that you can actually see and notice. Just a thought I have.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to approach it. I mean, I don't know what these acreages would come out at, but I'm thinking in my neighborhood up at the Cottonwoods, at the roundabout, there's a park that's a community park. And that may be 2.5 acres in size. It's got a nice pavilion, a nice playground area. I'd be interested to know if you took into account the acreage of that along what's phase 3, the ABC streets,
Okay.
and phase 2, and just got that acreage calculation, how many acres that is. I'm thinking that one might be about 15 to 25, and I could be way off. I'm completely guessing.
I can calculate that before the next meeting if you
Yeah, I'd just be interested to see, because that from my perspective is an amenity that's worth having for a subdivision of that size. Now it's much larger than that, but there's also other open spaces in that area that I'm not including in that calculation. But if I was just the numbered streets and the private area, the private subdivision right next to it, that's an amenity from my perspective that would be worth having, even if it's not 50 acres. Now, you may come back and say, Robert, that's 65 acres, so we'll see.
And I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because we've had some that have come in that have been less than 50, but would be fit within this kind of a development agreement or PC zoning. And, I mean, they were 45 acres or 30 acres or whatever they were. And so I'm wondering if the acreage is too big, and I agree with Robert. We gotta do something on that.
So, 13A 060 subpart C, third sentence. The ordinance with accompanying development plan shall provide all entitlements for that property. But not really, right? I mean, it provides the preliminary level, it provides a master plan, and it identifies the applicable standards for the property set forth in the development plan, right?
Yeah, it would provide basically the entitlements that the zoning ordinance would provide, but it would be in ordinance form with your narrative, your maps, and everything else that was submitted as part of that conceptual development plan.
But if I wanted to build a home, I'd still need to plat it. So.
Correct.
So I think we just need to tighten that language up, because it's not all entitlements. I understand what we're saying in terms of the basic land use and zoning level entitlements, and even past that to concept plan, but they still need to plat it in order to
Yeah,
develop.
they'd still have to go through the platting process and meet code requirements for that.
Yeah, and permit structures and stuff like that.
Yeah, but-
So I think we just need to tighten that language up.
Okay.
Okay. Any other?
13A 070, second paragraph, second sentence. Due to timing of the PC overlay process, notification requirements, and approval cure, close period, concurrent review shall not be permitted. So, that sentence just is a little awkward.
I can clarify. So basically, because of the timing it's going to take to go through the process to outline the list of entitlements, how you want the development to be viewed and regulated, that you can't also go through the platting process at the same time. That they're going to be separate processes. And I can clarify that a little bit clearer.
Okay, yeah, that one just is a little awkward. Down in 080, A2 and 3. So again, this is something we don't need to decide tonight, but yeah, I think 50% is a pretty high open space requirement in my experience.
That would be for any development that's rural in nature where the lots are going to be 1 acre in size or greater. All other developments, including single-family residential subdivisions that are sub 1 acre, multifamily, commercial, and industrial would have the 20%.
Okay. Okay, and I think we might be able to clarify a little bit of that by adding all other developments, including residential developments of less than 1 acre in size.
Okay.
But there's part of that that's counterintuitive to me, because the larger you make your lot sizes, the less I really require the open space. I think it's it's important for both. I mean, you can look at subdivisions that are not clustered, that are on 5 acre lots and put all on the side of a hill. I mean, you've mentioned some before, Commissioner Fackrell, in Summit County that you don't like. I bet those are a lot of those are 5 acre lots, but it's still looks like you developed the whole hillside.
That's right.
So, anyway, just a thought on that, and I think we need to just think about, do we want to land on 50%? It may be right for that. It may make sense for that reason, because like I said, intuitively I'm like, wait a minute, if we make them bigger lots, we shouldn't impose as much open space requirement. But if we're going to go 1 and 5 acre lots, it may mean that you need to have 50% open space in order for it to be meaningful in terms of view corridors between the areas that are developed and not.
I think part of the discussion with that was that with the 1 acre, most of those are going to be on well and septic, and so the state's already set a minimum size for those at 1.75. And so in order to get increased, they wanted to make sure that they could cluster and reserve a majority of the land. So that was kind of the basis around that discussion.
Okay, that's helpful. That's all I had. Sorry.
Continuing on in that one, we have in C, fencing, clearing, or screening and clear vision. Can you explain this one? Fences and landscape materials, except for mature trees, which are pruned at least 8 feet above the ground, shall not exceed 3 feet in height within a 10-foot triangular area formed by the edge of the driveway, and so forth. So how do you get that 8 feet above the ground and yet they can't be above 3 feet?
All right,
It's
so
that you can see to get in and out of driveways and roadways.
that's correct. So
Saying
any
8 feet back from the driveway.
Okay.
They have to be at least under 3 feet. Past that, they can be.
Okay, that's what I needed.
I
was
had
a
the
clar-
same, and I
the
had to
same
read it
thought?
twice until I was like, oh, now I get it.
Okay,
It's
all right.
also to allow mature trees in that area, but you have to trim them higher so that they're above the 8-foot vision clearance, so that any car or truck that pulls out can see clearly both ways. It's just a safety
Okay,
measure.
Pull out of my driveway in my car and then in my truck, and you'll see the difference.
okay. Well, you don't have any trees or bushes there. It's just a mailbox and rocks.
No, there are 4 trees down that park strip.
Oh, okay,
In
I'll
my
have to
truck,
look next time.
I can't see. In my car, they're cut up so I can see under.
Okay, all right.
So I just honk.
Okay, and then you've got on item F, of that same section, It says lighting requirements shall be determined and governed by the project development standards established pursuant to the requirements of this chapter. So my question on that is, what project development standards and the requirements of this chapter? There's nothing in there about the dark skies other than code.
So according to the reasoning for the PC zoning district is that they are gonna give the county something better or greater than what they can already do following the current code. And our code has very specific dark sky ordinance requirements in 8-6-44.
Okay.
And in order to meet that, we've been requiring a photometric. So if they propose something that will exceed what our code already requires, then I put in that so that you could review it and decide if you want to go with it or not.
Okay. That's good. I think that was it for me.
Did you have any thoughts or comments on the last section about amendments? Allowing for minor amendments?
No, I think that's important to allow for minor amendments. We still have an issue, well, now we have something in the code, but originally we didn't, to be able to amend the old PRUDs. But changes are gonna occur down the road. There's gonna be a need for amendments, so I think that's wise.
Thank you. I will go and make these changes. Did you want it on the next month, which would give me time to notice it for a public hearing?
Yes.
That would
That'd be
give me
great.
a month to make the changes as well.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Before you go, Commissioner Wilson or Anderson, any comments or questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Okay, item number 6 is the continuance of our discussion from our last meeting concerning dry utilities.
So we spent some time trying to track down standards with other companies. Salt Lake City doesn't have anything in their codes that we could find requiring dry utilities. We tried to contact Sandy. They were gonna email us back, but we haven't heard from them. Jeremy was able to get a hold of Brigham City, and they told him that they require the installation of secondary water lines throughout their city, not something that we do, and that they would use that as a dry utility conduit until it's used as a water utility, which I thought was kind of odd.
That seems crazy to me.
That's what I thought.
It's a great place to put your line until it's no longer a dry utility.
That's what I thought.
It's a secondary water line.
Yeah, Ogden City, they typically operate mostly through franchise agreements, and the city officials work with those utility companies to map out the locations for the dry utilities. We're still waiting on a call back from Beehive Fiber to try to figure out minimum conduit line sizes. Weber County, I checked through their code. It doesn't look like they have anything defining dry utilities in their code either. I had asked Mark Miller to come tonight, but there was a medical issue, so he wasn't able to attend. But what he said is his recommendation is that we should avoid all of the regulations pertaining to dry utilities because of the quasi-public agencies, such as dry utility companies are regulated by the Public Service Commission, and others have their own specific regulations. So if we require something, like if we say you have to put in certain conduit sizes in that road and the developer complies with that, and then they go to the internet service providers and they say that's not correct, you gotta rip it up and put in new lines, who's gonna pay for that? We as a county, I think, would bear some liability on that because we were the ones that told them to do it. With that said, he said if you want to make a requirement requiring, he would suggest requiring 3 6-inch conduits at road crossings, and that would avoid road cuts in the future. But leaving it as generic as possible in the code would probably be for the best, and just require that each developer work with an internet provider to provide that internet service. But I'm willing to write it however you want me to write it.
So the proposed language that you provided to us doesn't actually try to impose a standard with respect to dry utilities. It just indicates that they should be included within the corridors, right?
That's correct, that all dry utilities need to be handled by the developer. We could modify the language to add that those utilities be placed in the public utility easements, if you want a specific location for them.
Well, I think that makes sense in terms of the main service laterals, or not the laterals, the main service lines.
Okay.
Laterals, you know, you call the phone company to put in your service, and they bring it across your yard, wherever they bring it across your yard.
Right, during the construction of the home, not during
Yeah.
the subdivision.
This was, I think my recollection is important to Commissioner Anderson. I don't know if he's still on the line.
I am. I don't know, is there an echo when I talk?
Yes, yes.
There is.
I will abstain.
Do you, can we continue this to the next meeting when they're here?
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah, I think that's wise. Let's do that.
Okay. I will ask Mark if he can attend that meeting as well.
Oh, that'd be excellent. Okay, so, we probably should have had a motion on both of these to continue them to the next meeting.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
For the PC zoning district, I need time to notice
Oh,
if it's
sorry,
a public hearing.
that one we're gonna go a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we postpone the planning department discussion of the planned community PC zone text amendment until our second meeting in November, which should be noticed as a public hearing. Oh,
Second. I have to get the mic on.
All those in favor?
aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we postpone the discussion of dry utilities until our first meeting in November.
Second.
Oh, they did it.
Excellent, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That was
Aye.
good.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 7. Commission Vice Chair Fackrell and Justin Reese.
Okay. We've been working a year and a half at least on this project. We were, with that echo there, I know that Brian cannot speak without an echo, but he was gonna present some more stuff besides the strategic plan.
We want to see if his echoes as well.
That one won't, but go ahead, Brian, see if yours echoes. Say something. Okay, it echoes. So then maybe what we could do is maybe you could show your screen, if that's possible, and
I also sent a copy to Julie as well.
okay, and maybe we could, because we've got a little tiny presentation about all of this before we even get into the part they're gonna discuss. That will, can you do it? Okay. Okay, so while we're waiting for that,
And share his screen.
yeah, we can catch into it. There it is. He's got it here. Brian's got it on this. Impact of tourism. And, Justin, do you want to go through it, or do you want me to?
Well, Brian is the best one to go through it.
We're gonna have an echo, that's the problem.
But this is a very small PowerPoint, and it's a report on what tourism can do, on what small amounts of tourism tax, the TRT, the room tax, and the restaurant tax has on overall economic revenue and what is built from it. So this was something that Brian has put together on it. Little small to see there.
You know what I can do is I could call Brian, and he can just talk, and it'd be on here.
Sure.
Do you want to do that? Not saying you can't do that.
No, he's better to go through this.
Yeah.
It's shared.
It's shared, that's it. Where is Jeremy? I don't know.
Call anytime, Wayne.
Let me get you.
That's good.
Brian, I'm calling you. Okay, can you speak up, or
Can you hear me now?
try it again?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can.
Okay. I'm the poster child for Verizon at this point. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we wanted to do just a really quick presentation. This is something we feel is valuable for, the commission, city council, residents, business owners to all buy into and understand, what's happening from a tourism standpoint. So, super quick presentation here. The lodging tax that we collect is commonly called a TRT, or more commonly called TRT, transient room tax, and that's for Utah. Most, I believe, all counties impose a 4.25% tax on room rentals. That's hotels, campgrounds, etc. Anything less than 30 days are required to collect that tax. And then the restaurant tax is also imposed by all counties in Utah, and that's a 1% tax on purchase of food in restaurants. Blaine is, side note, was spoken about the McDonald's going in there, and if it's an average McDonald's that brings in $3.6 million in revenue per year, that's a $36,000 increase to the tax revenues for tourism. So the combined rate here we call TRCC for Morgan County and most counties in Utah is 5.25%. But what I want to show you guys, though, is how that money, that small amount of money being collected, contributes to the overall economic picture in Morgan County. So, as an example, I'm using a real rough number here that, previously we earned, oops, I skipped a slide, about $125,000 in tax revenue in Morgan County, and this is just an example. These aren't exact figures. And that $125,000, what that really means, if you divide $125,000 by the 5.25%, that means those establishments, the lodging establishments and dining establishments that exist right now in Morgan County, are earned revenues of approximately $2.4 million. So that's a huge number that isn't always evident to folks when they first look at this lodging tax revenue. And then further, what we look at is the total economic impact to the region. So this is real data that we get from the Kem Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah. And this data, I believe, this is back from 2019, but we try to skip the COVID years, and we also skip the year after COVID because those are kind of anomalous. So I always like to look at 2019. The 2022 numbers will come out fairly soon. But in 2019, $9.6 million was attributed to travel and tourism. So people that visited, maybe they only drove through, maybe they only got gas, maybe they stayed the night, maybe they vacationed, they bought something, but $9.6 million was from travel and tourism in Morgan County. If you look at what that means from kind of an investment standpoint, the hotels and the lodging and dining establishments earned this $2.4 million here. If they stayed the night, that led to $9.6 million in economic impact. If you want to think it from an investment standpoint, that's a 403% ROI, return on your investment. If you further extrapolate that and look at the TRCC, that's the lodging tax revenue, and you think, well, we earned $125,000 in lodging tax revenue. What if we increase that by 10%? What if TRCC increases by 10%? We move from 125,000 to 137,500. Mathematically, if we increase that, the economic impact will follow from 9.6 million to almost 10.6 million. So a small increase of basically $12,000 in TRCC in tax revenue collections equates to $1 million extra in economic impact to the community of Morgan County. So it's a message that we just want to make sure that everybody understands and can see. And, you know, these incremental increases in tax revenue make a huge impact on the community financially and economically. That's all I have for the presentation, but welcome to take questions.
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so if we, go ahead.
I was going to say, Blaine has the link to this presentation. Feel free to ask for it, share it. Businesses, Elks Club, Rotary, whoever, anybody we can get this information out to. The more people that understand this, the better residents and business owners embrace tourism and what TTAB is trying to do from a tourism standpoint. The easier it is to promote or move these tourism efforts forward, and the faster and more quickly they will see the direct benefits from that as well.
So if we look at the if it was a minimum tax from McDonald's just coming to our county, $36,000 is a lot greater than that 10%. A lot greater.
Yeah, so 36, if you look at these numbers right here, the 125,000, 36 is, I'm just doing this in my head, about 15% just from McDonald's. So the economic impact is pretty big. It's not, just from that one establishment, some of that money does leave the county because it's a chain, but it still has a huge impact, and we have direct access to those funds to reinvest in tourism efforts. So it still is a really big deal.
And so what we've been working on for the last year and a half is to come up with a strategic plan that we have now gone through a lot of workshops, and stakeholders have come in and talked to us, and we've done a lot of different things with it, and we finally have the plan. We received it this summer, or this late fall, and so I kept asking Justin to bring the TTAB people, which we have the chair and the vice chair here with us tonight besides Justin, to explain a little bit of the strategic plan, which if we get this all accomplished in the next 5 years, we could have a thriving sales tax base in the county. And so all of these things are to our benefit that's happening without increasing people coming and wanting, well, sure, they're going to want to buy a house. I know they will. Everybody does. But affordability is still there and people aren't selling. So anyway, the main goal is to bring people here, let them enjoy our county, and go home afterward. You know, after they've stayed a night or two in our different facilities, and that's what we're trying to do with everything, including up at East Canyon State Park and potential of other things that we're doing. So I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and tell us what's going on.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. So as a little bit of background, this is a plan that was funded by the state. Coraggio was a partner for the state for several different counties on putting together a strategic plan. The idea around this plan is to have a proactive approach for us to follow to promote tourism and increase the amount of revenue that we can generate that can be put back into additional recreational opportunities for residents and tourists alike. So this goes into near, mid, and longer term timelines. There's a lot of aspiration in this, meaning there are some things in this in the far term that might seem completely like out there, to be honest. However, the idea around that, for example, are we going to be bringing a light rail, spur up here? Maybe, but the idea around that is what are we going to do to help have a discussion around how do people get around up here in Morgan County? Is there any other transit opportunities? Is there bike trails, other trails that we can have there? So the idea is that we develop these over what we can do now, what we can do in a few years from now, what we can do in that 6 to 10 year outlook past there. So yes, the chair and the vice chair for the TTAB they're both here. So Mauricio is the chair now, and Donna is the vice chair. I'll let them pipe in on this. They both were instrumental on putting this together. But again, I'll just emphasize this is a plan that gives us the ability to proactively go after and develop and work on things rather than being reactive to just things as they come at us. So, Donna, do you want to go first?
Well, just a couple of high-level thoughts that went into this process. The participants that came and spoke and had conversations in the workshops, some cream rose to the top of things that resonate with most people from Morgan, and that's at the core of this plan. It's not to develop a plan for Park City. This is a plan that resonates with people who live in Morgan. And it starts off with getting a baseline and working with what we have now to get started, and then starts building on that.
No, and a lot of people that were involved, a lot of people that helped throughout the process were also stakeholders in these industries that help with tourism. Because we all know that when tourism gets involved, when tourism is working the way it needs to, it can bring a flurry of taxes and a good financial instrument into a county.
I'll say something there at that point. One thing that it also does is, of course, my big thing for the public is that if you spend more money, if people come into our valley and they spend money, we get a tax from it. That's a huge amount of money for our county. That's one of the reasons why we're able to stay within budget for our taxes and help it eventually to reduce the amount of money that we have to pay in property taxes from the county standpoint.
So I think for tonight's purposes, we wanted to present this. There's a lot to read through. There's a lot of information in here, but our understanding is that the county commission needs to approve this. There's already steps and actions underway that are already in line with this, but every grant, every meeting that we have will be focused on this particular plan. So our agenda items will be around what are we doing to provide better wayfinding to get to the different recreational activities that we have around the county? What are we going to do to our website to help promote it? What are we doing to social media? And we've had people point out like they're watching the social media, and if we get good content out there, which is part of this plan, it has much better reaction and better an advantage for us to get the word out. So this is what we wanted to bring tonight, and hopefully get your stamp of approval on it.
So not just bringing them to what we have now, we're also trying to develop other tourism type of activities. One of the big ones that we're looking at is agritourism. So if there's anybody in the agricultural area that would like to have visitors from China or Japan or Asia or Africa or wherever they come from, maybe from New York, they come to our area just for a visit, those people then will be able to have an experience that they could not have in New York. And they can go and milk a cow. And so we're looking at people, some of the agricultural people that will go and maybe say they're interested in having an agritourism type of opportunity for people. It will give money, more money to the person, the agricultural person, especially if you could bring them in to help them learn how to brand calves. You know, that's something they don't understand. Or maybe to milk a cow, or maybe to feed the animals, which these are different things in agritourism that we're looking at. We're also, and in these days that we did this study, we did these studies, and we had like a 3-day itinerary for somebody if they came to our valley. What could they do? And so this plan is all developed around that. Is what could they do in Morgan County as a current and as a future. And we have more opportunities in Morgan County now than we ever thought we had. We already have people that are taking horses, the horse rides, up into some areas of Morgan County that people never get a chance to see. And those are agritourism. The people own the horses, and that's the way they take care of and feed their animals because they enjoy doing it. There's others that are, we've got, Mauricio has mentioned that we could go and possibly get maybe a bus tour, these senior citizens that want to come and visit the area. Maybe they don't want to go milk a cow, but, you know, they might want to stop at some place other than McDonald's, or maybe they'll stop at McDonald's. Hey, we got a McDonald's here. We'll come, you know, whatever it might be. There's things that they'd like to see and how their food is produced. Sorry. So these are the kinds of things that we went through, and this plan gives us the benchmarks for us to achieve 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and so forth. So I just would like unless they have something else.
Yeah, I have another comment. Just this incorporates a lot of the other efforts going on outside of tourism tax, like with the active trails and the historical society and the DUP and things like that, focusing on and the economic development, and it's in line with all of these other development plans and projects that are in line. It just helps tie it all together to show enthusiastic community support to keep moving forward on some of these things. And also, it mentions in here, this isn't necessarily meant to be a rigid step-by-step, but to be reevaluated as it goes. So if we agree on the concept of it, we can start moving forward with the baseline and adjust as we need to as we go forward. I think we have a diverse group of participants and stakeholders.
So I really like it. I think it looks really good, and thanks for all of the work that went into it. Some of this I think is truly aspirational, but just let me ask a question. It says the area's OHV trails will be further developed and positioned as a top destination for OHV enthusiasts. Do we have an existing OHV trail in the county?
I don't believe so. That said, though, one of the
Maybe
things,
maybe a raft going down the river.
Yeah,
If that's an
that's
OHV.
an
That's not a
off-road. That's an
typical
off-road.
OHV in my mind.
here's one of the big things in here. It talks about working with private landowners, because there are, I can say personally, I have access to OHV trails, but it's because I know somebody. If that landowner sees fit that they can work with us, work with an outfitter here, that they can take people out there, great. So we might have
Okay.
some fantastic OHV trails, and they're going to be led by a guide, or there's fishing that's on private land, and
But presently, there's no public OHV
I am not
trails
aware
that
of
I,
one
because
right
I love that stuff, and I've never found one in our county, and nobody invites me onto their land, so.
Maybe in the next 3 years you'll have one.
I was gonna say East Canyon State Park is trying, working
Okay.
on ideas and leads to expand, potentially put some in. So there's one potential that could be concern there, and that's addressed right up front in phase 1.1, is liability concerns for private property owners, or, you know, there's everything involved with that that might make somebody not even want to consider the idea. Yet, you know, if a property owner or family is faced with trying to figure out how to make some money off of their property, or maybe sell it, or, you know, something like that, to keep it in the family, tourism is a viable option. It can stay in the green belt. You can do guided tours on it. It's not primarily recreation, if you're somebody mentioning that early. Recreation can go on agricultural property. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. They go together quite well. And when you look at like conservation easement organizations, they really like properties that have these things going on that will take care of the property, because they don't take care of the property, they just take care of their easement to prevent development, right? So these are viable options that can help fund the current generation so that they can be satisfied and keep that in the open space, in the green belt, in their family, things like that.
So, are we looking to approve this tonight, or was this just a presentation?
No, it's to approve. We have to have this approved for future grants and so forth.
And that is the real solid benefit of your approval is that we can list it in the grant applications to start trying to get money for these things.
Otherwise, we can continue working on it, whether or not it's in the plan or not. But then if we have approval of, you know, if we're behind this plan, then we ought to at least have some kind of consensus that we agree that this is a good plan and we ought to work forward.
Yeah, I think it's well done. A lot of great stuff in here. One comment I had was regarding the participants that it lists. It lists cities and counties, Morgan County Commission Boards, Morgan City, and then Mountain Green and Town of Croydon. Mountain Green and Town of Croydon don't exist. They're not actual entities. They're places. Two of us live in those areas, but they don't exist as entities. So I don't know if that's something we ought to consider revising. And Croydon happens to be spelled wrong on that page as well. But we probably ought to remove that from there because they don't exist as legal entities. 126 of the packet, so that'd be 29 of the plan.
Good, thanks for pointing that out. I mean, the idea around that, the spirit is obviously there's a lot of different parts of the county, and so it was to bring in people
from those areas. So maybe we need to just
corners of the county together to help.
Maybe we just indicate that. You
could just put Mountain Green.
It says the following
unincorporated.
municipalities and organizations, and then it lists those, but they're not municipalities, they're not organizations, they're places. So maybe we just say.
You can just say Mountain Green area.
Mountain Green area, Croydon area. I don't know.
Okay, no, well, we can make that change.
But there is no town, so that was only.
So-
Outside of that, I love what's in here. I think there's a lot of great information, and clearly a lot of work has gone into it, which is wonderful. Thank you all for the effort.
Are all these photos from within our county?
Yes. I think so. Aren't they?
I doubt it. They
Oh.
use a lot of stock photos, so that's, you know, we're talking
Couple
about
are.
baseline. We've got to start with what we've got, and we do have some budget and an action item to get more content that's authentic and photos of Morgan, but we haven't gotten to that point where we can hire the photographer and expend that budget on it, but that's like one of our next to-dos.
As a matter of fact, we've already taken this in the budget that was submitted, and it follows these points in this plan to correspond the action and the budget item. So that's already a benefit for us. So you know that that money is supposed to be going towards an action.
I like that a lot. I think it helps us define where it should be spent, so that's great.
One thing may I mention, somebody mentioned it to me on a text here recently, just a few minutes ago. They said, Morgan County needs to be kind to everybody that comes into Morgan County. And whether or not they're from our area or not, or if they're from our area, they need to be kind. So if we want this to work, we've got to be kind to everyone.
So, I'm fully in support of this. However, I have not been able to read it on a line-by-line basis. So, is it something that if we postponed it to our next meeting, that we could, is that consistent with
okay.
your timing needs? Because I, like I said, I've gone through a lot of it, but I haven't been able to read it all.
So I noticed a couple of little typos in there too, but that's why I want to emphasize that this isn't a rigid thing. It's a guideline, and in here, the committees that are set up, and we'll be revising it as we go as needed. So I don't think it's that big of a deal if it misnames the TTAB board somewhere in there too. But we know who we are. we're working on it, and I don't think that's. I mean, it's not going into code, so that's not a showstopper. We can keep working on the general concept.
Yeah, so basically that's what we're trying to do. I mean, we can read it at our leisure. As far as it's the whole concept of what we're trying to do. So it's up to you guys. If you want to, we can approve it next time after you've had a chance to read it, because I know this meeting we had a lot to read.
I wouldn't be opposed to approving it. However, we didn't notice it correctly for that. We noticed it as a presentation and discussion. We didn't notice it as a decision on our agenda. So
Oh,
let's
I
just
thought we
make sure
had.
we notice it as a
It's
decision
right there.
for the
It
next
says,
meeting.
says decision.
Oh, discussion decision. Okay, we're good. Never mind.
Yeah.
It just said, below it said presentation and discussion. All
Yeah.
right, we're good. So I'm okay to approve it, but if you prefer to wait, that's fine with me too.
Do the other commissioners have any comments? Jared or Matt, do you have any comments or concerns on this?
We need to have them all on speakerphone.
Either way.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to approve the strategic tourism plan / destination development plan.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
I have one more question or comment. When folks are working on these other plans, economic development plans, county plan, can we make sure these different plans are meant cross-referenced and mentioned, so everybody's not working in silos, so that we have, as far as they are in line with each other? Just a thought to keep in mind.
It's a great idea, but the question is, can we do it? And so I'm trying to think who that is. They're certainly not all going to come together in my mind, but
An example would be there's a recently approved, or will be approved, the ATAB, the active transportation.
Oh, we've already done that.
Capital Plan. So we will be working with that. We'll make sure we approve that.
And you know, another one that you might want to be working with is even the Fair Board. Is to work with them, just to, so that way we're working all on the same, what we want to try to accomplish.
Yeah, and we could definitely reference these plans as part of our general plan as well, you know, that we have plans in multiple areas. I think that would be wise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, item number 8, Commissioner Anderson. Actually, we'll probably have Commissioner Fackrell introduce
I'll
this
call him.
since Commissioner Anderson, or maybe he'll call you Commissioner Anderson, so we don't have the echo. but,
I can do the first one.
This is the COG agreement regarding the Young Street Bridge.
Sorry, I was gonna call both Matt and Jared to let them talk. Okay, basically what this was is we had approved a few months ago, but we never had it in a resolution form for the for COG, from COG for approval for the Young Street Bridge. And so we had to do it under a resolution, and that's why we brought today is a resolution that we can accept instead of the amount that they asked us first to approve was less than 1 million. Now it's 1.25 million. But they're requesting, and it has in our paperwork, the amount of payment every single year on this bond that they have already got. This was something that COG had approved when they started the Young Street Bridge project. We have already, well, with this, what we're doing, we've got that sales tax, and this is where that money is gonna come from. The sales tax that we just implemented in April. That tax is the tax that we'll be using some of that tax to pay for this bond. And that's basically what it is.
Okay, so once you get through the ramp up here this year, it's basically 152,000 a year.
Right, that's correct.
And it's a 10-year term, it looks like, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, that was a question that was brought to me from a resident asking about the term of it, because it doesn't necessarily state the term. It just says when the first payment will be due, but then it references the table, and the table has the number of payments.
Yes. Do you have anything else to add, Jared?
No, can everybody hear me okay? Well, I actually have one other
can.
thing to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just appreciate all the work that Blaine has done, all the work that the COG board has done. It is a recommendation to the commission. Part of state statute is we cannot spend more than 50% of what we have in budget. So we've got a running budget that we receive in COG. We have new monies coming in from last legislative session, so we're well within those boundaries and regulations we need to follow with this amount.
Do we know what resolution number this will be?
We need somebody to, do you have that, Julie?
This is a draft, and nobody.
Well, I guess we could have it redone, and,
Well, we could
actually, we
still
can approve it.
potentially do it and
Yeah, I'll just
indicate
the
that we
next
need to-
sequential number.
Yeah, the next sequential resolution. I will note, this bridge has been awesome to have in the community. I think it's been a great asset. I forget that it's there sometimes.
Right.
You still
and
go
still go
around.
my old route, but it's wonderful.
I've got to go drive over. If we're going to spend 150 a year, I've got to go drive.
You better
over
be
it.
driving that. That's right.
Matt?
Okay.
Answer the phone.
He's using that
Oh,
to connect.
okay.
What do you need Matt for?
No, I just wanted to make sure he could hear and if he needed to say anything.
Well, I can make a motion to approve resolution CO-23, next sequential number in our resolutions. A resolution approving an annual payment from the county on behalf of the Council of Governments to Morgan City for the development and construction of the Young Street Bridge.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve. Motion has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Sorry,
opposed?
Blaine. I'm on the device. You have to call.
Okay.
You're good.
You mean the final
Um,
copy?
The final copy. Who submitted it to you? Commissioner Anderson?
It was the city.
For the city? Okay, we'll just need a copy from the city then. Or if you have it in the PDF version, we can approve all of the red lines and do that.
That's the version I was looking at, includes the red line changes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Motion passes. All right, on to our last item of the evening. Commissioner Anderson, this is approval and agreement between Legislative Solutions and Morgan County.
You're online still, so you can talk.
So I apologize that I wasn't here tonight to be able to present this. very excited to make this minor change. As you recall, commissioners, a year ago we got on board 1, 2, 3 different lobbyists as a group, and they were instrumental in helping us get funds for our I-84 project. As we're moving forward, and as we've got many other items, we're working with legislature, we're working with in fact, we had a meeting with President Adams, with Speaker Wilson. Well, he's going to move on, but with Speaker Wilson, with Director Bracera from UDOT, with Director Phil Ferry from DNR. So we've had a lot of big meetings with decisions that we're planning on to move forward with the county. And from an administrative standpoint, I know that Carrie Gibson has been instrumental in getting these meetings set up and getting progress in a lot of different avenues and items that we need with the legislators down in the Capitol. So Carrie's also local. He's, as you know, commissioners, he's attended multiple meetings. So what we want to do here, and as you saw with the text from our attorney, he approved the form of the contract, is really just an administrative move to have Carrie be able to administer this contract. It still includes Lincoln Hill. It still includes Dave Stewart, and still includes Greg. It includes everybody that we had on board previously. We're just having Carrie administer, with him being involved and up at the county often. So that's what I've got. Commissioner Fackrell, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Well, that's pretty much it. I can agree with it all. Right now, it just makes it to where one person is administering it. We never did state in our other contract who was going to administer the lobbying. It was just a group, and now what we're doing in this is we are actually changing it to an agreement with one particular lobbying group, and then they will use the other sources as needed.
So the only question I had was regarding... Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
My question would be, is how are the funds being divided between the groups?
The funds will be divided based upon the needs. In other words, we have the amount going out to the one Legislative Solutions, and then they will, as the other people come involved within it, they'll still work the same way they always have. It's just that it's going to be going directly to one entity versus 3 entities. I mean, it's still going to be paid out of those entities. It's not, paid to them. They're still going to get money for it. They're still going to do the work. They better do the work. But we're going to be sending it to one particular entity and making sure that it gets done. In the past, it has not been done. And that's the reasoning behind it, is the money has not been divided up fairly. And so now we're asking that they all get done fairly.
So I really feel like you need to have some type of, is that per hour? How is that going to be done? You know it's done fair.
So it looks to me like in Exhibit A, the only way that that's functionally addressed is that we make payments directly to Legislative Solutions, who will subcontract with the other firms. They're responsible for managing the subcontracts and allocating amounts as needed based upon work performance and approval by the client. So it's essentially, they're self-managing it. This isn't directing, and I don't think there's any way for an agreement like this to do that prospectively.
Well, I think that's the problem, and that's why this is being changed, because it was all being paid to one of the other. and the others felt like being divided up equally.
So, I think he was saying there was a potential conflict under the prior arrangement where some of the participants on the contractor side didn't feel like it was divided up equally or in accordance with the contract. But I don't think our contract has ever specified how it's divided among the consultants. I think that has to be amongst them to do that, and I assume they have that kind of agreement in place. And if they don't, they need to do that, from my perspective. This is a 2-year contract, it looks like, as opposed, and haven't we previously done it on an annual basis? And then
Yeah, that was my only question on this, is that is a change from what we had done in the past.
And then it says will be renewed annually thereafter. I think that needs to say, and may be renewed annually thereafter.
I'm fine with it. Can we hear anything more from Matt?
No, I guess this is, I'm just trying to figure out if this is going to be a surprise to our current lobbyists who's been receiving the money.
So, Matt, you're really hard to hear because of the echo, so maybe what we ought to do...
Oh, Matt, drop off of the meeting, and then, or at least turn it off, the muting, and then we can hear you on the phone. Are you off? You there?
So, while we're waiting for that...
He's not with me. Oh, there he is. So, let me... Hello, Matt. Okay, I'm gonna try to merge the two of you, both Jared and you, if I know how to do it. Oops, I may have shut you off.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're there? Okay, Jared, you there?
Yes, I'm here, and I can hear.
Okay, good. Okay, so now we can hear you. Go ahead and state what you were saying.
I guess my only concern with this is this happening unbeknownst to the lobbyist, to Dave, who we've been doing our contract with, or did we give him notice that we were canceling his contract, and now we are renewing a contract with Kerry? I'm happy with all of them. I don't have a problem with that, and I think they should all be paid how they've performed, for sure. And I'm confused that Dave wouldn't have paid them, although I understand that there is some people that are disgruntled with that. But I'm wondering, is this being done correctly as far as, are we canceling a contract and then starting another contract? I just want to make sure we're doing it correctly. So can I add my thoughts to this real quick?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The way I see it, I think we're offered a direction to go right now. So I think the decision we need to make is this the direction that we want to go? I don't think it'd be prudent to cancel a current agreement when we don't know what direction we're going to go first. So I think it's good to say, hey, here's a presentation of a direction. Do we want to go forward with it? If we want to go forward with it, I think we can then move forward with canceling the existing lobbyist agreement that we have and implementing this one. Again, I know there's been multiple conversations with Garrett and saying, hey, it's the same firm. We're just doing different administration wise. And I know he texted all of us and said he was good with the form of the agreement. I think I'm excited. I was going to say anxious, but more excited to move forward with the time and effort that can be put forth with Gary. Dave's phenomenal. He's great. He does. I think he's got an awesome niche in what he does, and that's why I want to keep him as a part of this contract. I also think that Dave might be quite busy. I don't see him, don't hear from him, don't talk to him, and Commissioner Fackrell can speak a little bit on this also. I think he talks with Kerry a lot more than I do, but I know with a handful of items that we're currently working on, there's direct relations and meetings and things being set up through Kerry on those items. So I think it makes sense administratively. I like what was said in this contract also, that it says, hey, if there's any changes on who we're paying and why and how, us as commissioners make that decision and let Kerry know that that's how we want it administered. So I think it's a much, it feels like it's going to be a bit cleaner. It feels like it might take maybe a little bit of a load off of Dave's plate a little bit, where Kerry can step in being locally and being here often to help with that. So those are my thoughts.
So,
Okay, that was my only concern, that we're doing it correctly.
okay, so Kerry's here. Why don't we have him?
During a period of time to do a new contract and not cancel another contract, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so Kerry's here. Why don't we have him address those? So hopefully you'll be able to hear him speak as well.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate the discussion, the thorough discussion.
Can you guys hear?
First of all, I just want to tell you all thank you for the opportunity to work with you in this county. It means a tremendous amount to me. I love it. I hope you can tell that by the effort that I've put into this. So just to answer a few of those direct questions and resolve a couple of, does that help? Resolve a couple of those concerns that Commissioner Wilson has brought up. When it became apparent to me that this was kind of the direction that commissioners had wanted to go, I had the discussion as well of you know, how to address the current contract. And that's why, if you'll look on the contract, it's dated December 1st. So the other contract expires on the end of December. So there will be no overlap. So I hope that explains answers Commissioner Wilson's question. It's just basically, where do you want to go from here? And as far as I'm concerned, we've had good results from the current team. This changes nothing with who's on the team. It just simply changes administration and allows for a little bit more of a local hands-on administration process here. So again, I'm grateful to be a part of the team however you all see fit. I think this is a good answer, but I'm comfortable with however you decide to move forward. I can't remember if there was another question from Commissioner Wilson. I just remember the particular one about overlapping contracts, and I hope I addressed that.
So there's that, and then I think he just wanted to be comfortable that amongst yourself on the consultant side, this has all been discussed and everybody's in agreement on how we're moving forward with the administrative changes.
And I'll answer that by saying no, it has not been agreed to a specific format among all of the other consultants. This was as a discussion individually with commissioners here, how they would like to move forward. But my intent would be, as soon as, you know, at this point, as soon as this is ratified, we go to each of the other consultants and find out if they, what level they would like to participate at this point. We'll wrap that up and make sure that everybody is comfortable. As Commissioner Anderson mentioned, the language that we put in the contract was that if there are to be any changes, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I've had a little bit of a frog in my throat the last couple of days. But if there are to be any changes, that it would require administrative approval by the county commission. And so any changes to you know, a particular entity or you know, any of the subcontractors, that would be addressed additionally by the county commission. So we wanted to leave some room for administration that would kind of keep the commission out of those day-to-day issues, but yet make sure that you had the authority to know where things were going. So if there's any questions or any concerns, they'll have to come to you for approval.
So, given the expiration of our upcoming contract at the end of December or December 1st?
December 1st, the end of November.
End of November. So I guess what I would recommend is that we, I mean, I think I'm comfortable with the change in approach, the administrative approach. I think we ought to say it may be renewed annually. And then if that's the direction we're going to go, then why don't you have those discussions, and if that's where everybody's at, then bring it back and we can seek to formally approve it.
Well, I will say this in response to that. Really, the decision of how you want to move forward doesn't have anything to do with any of us consultants. It has to do with the commission. And so if you want to move forward with this, great. If you do want us to go back and have some kind of exact numbers, we can do that. My guess is that these consultants are all going to want to be a part of the team, like I do. I mean, the fact that they are right now, I think that will continue. But this was a way of putting you as commissioners in the driver's seat here. So I think I think it makes sense the way it is, but I'm happy to handle it any way that you'd like.
I'm not looking for exact numbers. I mean,
Not either.
I'm comfortable with moving forward with it generally. I think Commissioner Wilson may want to understand that, and maybe we just postpone it until our next meeting so that he can
Just a
be
minute.
here and make sure he's comfortable on any of those issues. But I think in terms of the natural expiration of the existing contract, I think that one's clearly resolved. So
Matt would like to say something. Phil, go ahead.
Okay. I'm not concerned about that being the direction we go. Don't get me wrong. That wasn't my concern. My concern was that it was just all handled professionally and correctly. That's it.
Okay. So then maybe what we need to do as commissioners is one of us or all of us sit down with the other lobbyists, the other groups, and just say, we can go through and propose our proposal to them, and if they don't like it, then we can make a decision from there.
Sure, because I agree. Carrie's been at our meetings, our cheerleader, and so he's been our person that has, I think, been to represent us the most. So, like I said, I'm fine with the way that direction. Just wanted to make sure it was done correctly.
And I'm in favor of that too, and I think Carrie is too. I can say a lot for Carrie because Carrie has carried the ball, and it's not just in his name, but carried the ball, and he's got us in the spotlight of everybody. I mean, the meeting we had the other day was just fantastic with the people that were in that room to give us the results of what we needed and what we need for the other item that we've been working on. So anyway.
Can I make one more comment about the term? I'm totally comfortable with 1 year, if that feels better. That is the way that it has been in the past. We thought that 2 years might be appropriate just because of some of the things coming up, but and I'd love to give a little report on that whole thing too if we have a minute. But yeah, we expect our performance to speak for itself, right? We would not expect to continue to be paid for not being successful. So I'm happy with a change to 1 year, Mike.
I would suggest then that we maybe look at postponing this as far as the approval, and that we work on talking with the others and then bringing it back for our next meeting or the next one of the next two meetings, preferably the next meeting. And then we could go from there. If you want that as a motion, I made a motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
And a second. Any comments on the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Matt? Matt, are you there? He dropped off.
Okay, any opposed? I guess there weren't any. Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
So, since we're at the end, can he give us an update? I'd like.
Yeah, if you want to give us just a brief update, that'd be great.
I'll just be quick about the issue with the. I don't know if you followed the news lately on the Olympics. I think that is going to change the game for us as well. Just recently, the IOC decided to award the 2030 and 2034 Olympics at the same time, with all of the competition besides Utah opting towards the 2030 date. So really, we're the only ones in the game for 2034, which is what we preferred from the beginning. That just puts us in a really good place for, for what's going on in the future with what we're trying to do, some of the projects we're trying to do here, because the Olympics drives a lot of that economic growth.
You there, Lane?
You're good. That's okay.
Okay. There's a few other things that are fairly sensitive that I probably shouldn't mention, but I will say that we are, as Commissioner Fackrell mentioned, we are being well received right now by the legislature. They appreciate what we're doing. They're working hard, and they know who we are, and they know why we're doing it, and they're being very, very good at this. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda here. We just have the commissioner comment period. We've already addressed that,
kind of done
at least
that.
the three of us that are here, but Commissioner Anderson or Commissioner Wilson, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Can we go into a closed session?
Yeah, we do have a request to go into closed session. There's three topics that need to be discussed. Pending litigation, disposition or purchase of real property, and character or professional competency of an individual. With that, then, I guess if there's no commissioner comments, we'll look for a motion to go into that closed session. Following the closed session, we will adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Yeah,
be on
we'll
the
have them
phone.
stay on. We need to call Garrett as well or get him on somehow. Maybe we might have to do a conference line or something to make that work. I don't know.
Do you want to do it on yours or me or what?
I could also send out a Teams invite if that works.
Hey, thank you, guys.
How do we do the Teams invite from here?